They refused to book him a room, not because they were full, but because he didn't fit their biased standards. What could have been a painful memory became the spark for something bigger when he decided to take control and change the system from within. He returned, not as a guest, but as a man with real power. What he did next would shock even the most seasoned skeptics. But let's start from the beginning. Ethan Grant, a distinguished black entrepreneur in his late 30s, stepped confidently through the glass doors of the renowned Meridian Hotel. The hotel lobby was a testament to luxury, with polished marble floors that gleamed under the soft, golden glow of crystal chandeliers overhead. Elegant leather armchairs sat neatly arranged along the sides of the lobby, each one inviting guests to relax in the opulence of their surroundings. Dark wood accents, fresh white lilies in vases, and quiet, attentive staff added to the ambiance of exclusivity and refinement. Ethan wore a meticulously tailored gray suit that highlighted his sharp, refined taste. Beneath his jacket, a crisp white shirt and a subtle silver tie completed his look. His posture was tall and self-assured, his expression calm yet focused. A thick black leather briefcase in hand, he approached the front desk, his gaze scanning the lobby as he took in the elegance around him. At the desk stood Robert Steele, the hotel manager. In his mid-50s, Robert was a white man with thinning graying hair slicked back to project an image of authority. He wore a navy blue suit, pressed to perfection, with a small gold pin bearing the hotel's insignia on his lapel. His posture was stiff, and his expression carried an air of cold professionalism that bordered on arrogance. His pale blue eyes narrowed slightly as Ethan approached, giving him a once-over that was subtly dismissive. "Good afternoon," Ethan greeted with a polite nod, his voice calm and cordial. "I'd like to book a suite for my upcoming stay. I've heard excellent things about your hotel and thought this would be the perfect place." Robert's smile was tight and strained, barely touching his eyes. His gaze shifted to the computer screen in front of him, but he didn't make any attempt to type or check availability. "I'm afraid we don't have any suites available at the moment," he said, his tone controlled but lacking sincerity. "In fact, the hotel is quite full. Perhaps you might find what you're looking for at one of the more modest establishments nearby?" The insinuation was unmistakable, and Ethan felt a sharp pang of frustration. He had dealt with this kind of subtle discrimination before, but he hadn't expected it here, in one of the city's most prestigious hotels. For a moment, he considered challenging Robert, asking if he was really booked up, or if his appearance alone had led to the quick dismissal. But Ethan kept his composure. His face remained neutral, though a flicker of disappointment passed through his brown eyes. "I see," he replied, his tone steady and controlled. "Thank you for your time." Robert's dismissive smile widened, clearly pleased to be rid of him, though he tried to mask it with a thin veil of professionalism. Ethan took a final look at the manager, his mind already turning over the unfairness of the situation and the implications behind it. He'd felt the sting of Robert's words, a subtle but unmistakable message that he didn't belong in this space. Suppressing his frustration, Ethan turned and walked out of the hotel, his footsteps echoing across the marble floor as he left. As Ethan left the hotel, his mind churned with a mixture of frustration, disappointment, and a simmering anger that grew with each step he took. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the street, but he felt no warmth from it. Instead, he felt the sting of Robert's dismissive tone lingering, like a bitter aftertaste. He couldn't forget the subtle but sharp implication that he didn't belong, that someone like him, successful, accomplished, yet black, was unworthy of such a prestigious space. Ethan's thoughts drifted to the struggles his ancestors had faced. He thought of his grandfather, who had marched for civil rights, and his grandmother, who had always taught him to hold his head high in the face of prejudice. Their sacrifices, their relentless fight for equality, fueled the fire building within him. They had faced much worse with courage and resilience. Ethan knew he couldn't let this slight go unanswered. He owed it to his family and to himself to take a stand. That evening, as he sat in the quiet of his study, Ethan opened his laptop and began researching the hotel's ownership structure. He leaned back in his leather armchair, absorbing the information he found. The Meridian wasn't just a single hotel. It was part of a chain of upscale hotels with an investor-backed model, which allowed individuals to purchase shares and, by extension, influence the chain's operations. Ethan's eyes narrowed with determination. Here was an opportunity to do more than just confront Robert. He could enact real, lasting change from the inside. Ethan took a deep breath, then picked up his phone and called a close friend, a fellow entrepreneur who had faced similar experiences. He recounted what had happened, his voice steady, but tinged with the hurt and frustration that had been building all day. His friend listened, then offered immediate support, voicing outrage at the discrimination Ethan had faced. Over the next few days, Ethan reached out to more friends and colleagues, sharing his experience and explaining his vision for making the hotel industry more inclusive. The response was overwhelming. People were moved by his story, by the injustice he'd experienced in such a prestigious establishment. His friends rallied around him, offering not only words of encouragement, but financial backing. They wanted to be part of his vision, to support his mission to create spaces where everyone, regardless of race or background, would be treated with respect and dignity. With their support and pooled resources, Ethan was able to purchase a significant stake in the hotel chain. The acquisition wasn't just a financial victory, it was a personal one. His mission wasn't about revenge or simply claiming ownership. It was about transforming a space that had once rejected him into one that welcomed all. His goal was to set a standard in the hospitality industry, to make the Meridian not just a luxurious brand, but a beacon of inclusivity. Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing he was standing not only for himself, but for all who had been subtly or overtly pushed aside. The journey had only just begun, but he was ready to see it through. Several months later, Ethan found himself back at the Meridian Hotel, but this time under very different circumstances. He walked through the familiar marble-floored lobby with a quiet confidence, dressed in a sharp navy suit and a silver tie that spoke to his success and composure. Staff members, unaware of his new position, acknowledged him with polite nods as he made his way to the conference room. He knew that today would be a pivotal moment, not only for him, but for the future of the Meridian Hotel and its commitment to inclusivity. The investor meeting was being held in one of the hotel's grand conference rooms. The space was elegantly decorated with dark mahogany paneling, leather chairs around a gleaming glass table, and crystal chandeliers that cast a warm, golden light over the room. Around the table sat influential figures, investors, board members, and executives, each dressed impeccably, exuding authority and power. Among them was Robert Steele, who had no idea that Ethan, the man he had once dismissed so easily, now held a stake large enough to influence company policy. Robert himself was dressed in a charcoal gray suit, his hair slicked back, and a faint smirk playing on his lips as he greeted other investors. In his mind, this meeting would be another routine discussion, filled with profit margins and minor policy updates. He glanced at Ethan as he entered, his expression flickering with a moment of recognition, though he quickly dismissed it, assuming that this must be another guest speaker or consultant. As the meeting commenced, Robert appeared relaxed, nodding along to discussions on profits and quarterly growth, confident in his position. However, when it was Ethan's turn to speak, the room shifted. Ethan stood, his presence commanding as he addressed the table with calm authority. His deep voice resonated with clarity, each word measured and backed by careful research and conviction. "Thank you all for your time today," Ethan began, looking around the room. "As someone who recently joined the Meridian family, I believe in not only preserving the luxury of our brand, but in elevating our commitment to inclusivity and fairness. It's essential that we ensure all guests, regardless of their background, feel welcomed and respected in our establishments." As he continued, Ethan outlined a set of proposed policies aimed at preventing discrimination. He spoke of comprehensive staff training programs designed to raise awareness of unconscious bias and equip employees with the skills to provide respectful and equal service to all guests. He presented data showing that brands with inclusive practices not only gained a better reputation, but saw increased guest satisfaction and loyalty. The investors around the table nodded, visibly impressed by the depth of Ethan's insights and the clear connection between inclusivity and profitability. Robert, who had been sitting with an air of detachment, suddenly shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His gaze moved from his notes to Ethan's face as realization dawned on him. This was the same man he had dismissed at the front desk months ago. A wave of recognition, followed by shock, crossed his face, and a deep flush spread across his cheeks. He sat rigidly, his hands clenched, as Ethan's calm yet unyielding words continued to fill the room. Ethan's gaze found Robert's, and for a brief moment, he held it, conveying a silent reminder of their previous encounter. The room was quiet, but the intensity between them was unmistakable. Robert looked away, trying to compose himself, but the reality was clear. The man he had once rejected as unsuitable was now a decision-maker, someone with real influence over his future in the company. As Ethan finished his presentation, applause broke out around the table, and investors voiced their support for his proposals. Robert, now visibly uncomfortable, realized that he could no longer operate with the same impunity as before. He knew he would have to adapt, to align himself with this new vision for the hotel, or risk finding himself on the wrong side of progress. For the first time in his career, Robert understood that his actions would be held to a higher standard, and he felt the weight of that accountability settle on him. In the months that followed, Ethan's influence over the Meridian Hotel grew steadily, and his vision began to take shape in every corner of the establishment. His policies, once just ideas on paper, became the backbone of the hotel's new culture. He introduced comprehensive diversity programs designed not only to attract a more diverse range of guests, but to create an environment where all were genuinely welcomed and respected. Employees, from front desk staff to senior management, underwent training focused on empathy, anti-bias awareness, and inclusive service practices. Each session reinforced Ethan's commitment to respect and fairness, ensuring that every guest would feel valued. Guidelines for fair treatment were also established, outlining clear standards and expectations. These standards were not mere formalities but tangible measures that shaped daily operations. Complaints of unfair treatment were now taken seriously, with processes in place to address them transparently. Ethan personally oversaw the training program for new hires, setting an example of what the Meridian stood for under his guidance. His presence at these sessions underscored his dedication, and employees were inspired by his approachability and genuine passion for change. Ethan also launched a mentorship initiative, pairing new employees with seasoned staff members who could guide them through their roles with respect and professionalism. The mentorships were more than professional training. They fostered a sense of community and belonging among the staff. Ethan wanted every member of the hotel's workforce to feel empowered, to know that they were part of a supportive team that valued them not only for their skills, but for who they were. As Ethan's vision took hold, the hotel transformed. No longer merely a symbol of luxury, the Meridian became known as a place where dignity and equality were just as prized as opulence. Guests from all backgrounds now felt comfortable and respected, and word of the Meridian's commitment to fairness spread. Reviews began to reflect this change, with guests praising not only the luxurious amenities, but the warmth and respect with which they were treated. The Meridian's reputation soared, and it became a model in the industry for combining elegance with inclusivity. Robert, meanwhile, found himself in a far different position than before. The confidence and subtle arrogance he once carried had been tempered by the realization that his actions were now under careful scrutiny. Humbled by Ethan's rise and the clear message his policy sent, Robert attempted to ingratiate himself with Ethan, offering to assist with initiatives or participate in the training sessions. Yet Ethan, while professional and cordial, maintained a respectful distance. He had not forgotten the initial encounter at the front desk and wanted to ensure that Robert understood the importance of accountability. Ethan's distance served as a quiet but firm reminder that change was not just about policies, but about a shift in values and attitudes. Within a year, Ethan's name became synonymous with resilience and integrity. Employees saw him as an inspiration, a leader who had turned a moment of discrimination into a catalyst for progress. His journey from rejection to ownership resonated deeply, especially with those who had faced similar challenges. Ethan's leadership style, calm yet unyielding, demonstrated that positive change could be achieved without anger or resentment. but through strength and unwavering commitment. The Meridian was no longer just a luxurious hotel. It had become a beacon of justice and respect in the community, a place that upheld the values of equality in every interaction. Through his quiet, determined leadership, Ethan had not only reshaped a single hotel, but had set a standard that rippled outward, inspiring others to pursue fairness and integrity. He had built a legacy, transforming the very system that had once attempted to keep him out, leaving behind a powerful reminder that true progress comes from turning barriers into bridges for all.